What's up everybody, welcome to Balkan Moto. It's been a few months since we did any videos and the weather's finally warmed up a little bit so that we can do some more work in the garage. This time we're gonna finally get this guy up on the wall. Let's check it out. Alright, so in the last few episodes we cleaned up the motor and we stripped out the internals to make it lighter. And today we're finally gonna attempt to mount it up on the wall. So for the job, we're gonna need some heavy-duty shelf brackets. These are rated, I believe, up to 1,000 pounds if mounted properly, which we intend on mounting properly because that thing is heavy as hell. We're gonna use one of these big boards, which I believe is just an L-beam cut into pieces. I have two of them. One I was kind of keeping there as a working spot. The other one is this one, so I'm probably going to be using this one to kind of measure and position things, and probably even as the final piece, because honestly I don't need it to be super clean. We'll see, maybe I'll switch it out for this one. In either case, I don't need it to be mega nice. The other thing that I wanted to do was in order to not let this guy tip this way that easy, I wanted to make some brackets to mount to these holes here, so that essentially there's a bracket like that down to the wood and up to here, and potentially another one on the front side as well, so that this thing is kind of attached to the shelf. But in order to do that, I've bought some, what is this, 1/8 piece of metal that I intend on cutting and making these brackets. So bracket like that and bend it at the bottom so that it can be screwed onto the thing. But either way, that's gonna be kind of the next step. First step is let's make the shelf on the wall and mount it on there. All right, so I roughly want the shelf to be kind of like in this area, so just above the motorcycle back and kind of above this empty space where I usually keep my recycling bins. And potentially kind of like at chest height, so that you actually have space under it. And in order to do that, first we got to find the studs, because there's no way in hell I'm mounting this thing just to the drywall. So for that purpose, stud finder, let's mark up the studs and do some measurements, see how things are going to be fitting. Okay, so studs are marked up, so we have one here and one here. They're, as expected, standard 16 inches apart. So that's good. Now let's make a nice straight line and mount these guys on there with some anchors, and hopefully this stuff doesn't fall out. All right, we got the shelf up. It seems to be anchored pretty solidly. What I'll do is I'm gonna put some weights on it just to make sure that it doesn't rip off the wall with that thing on there and the motorcycle under it. Yeah, next would be trying to muscle this guy onto there. All right, now that we have the shelf, let's do some weight tests. I have some dumbbells here. That guy's a 50-pounder and these are 35s. So I'm hoping that this thing can hold all of it, because I'm estimating that guy to be 80-90 pounds. So if it could hold 130, we should be good. So let's try with the 35 first. All right, 35 pounds. Pretty solid. Didn't seem to move at all. Okay, we're good. 50 pounds. Pretty solid. Doesn't seem to shift. Let's try 85. So that plus one of the 35s. If that holds, we should be fairly good. All right, 85 pounds, easy. Okay, and let's toss that guy on there for final test of 120 pounds. If that holds, pretty confident that holds. All right, weight check, passed. Perfect. Now let's clean up this board a little bit and line it up nicely and attach it to the shelf. And then we're gonna see how we're gonna lift the engine up on there. All right, shelf is mounted. Solid. Now let's figure out how we're gonna get this guy on there. Once it's on there, well, actually no, maybe while it's still here, I'll try making some of those brackets that I was talking about, so that when we put it up, I can place it on there and then just put the brackets on and call it a day. All right, so I measured out the first bracket that we're gonna make, which is just about 12.5 centimeters long. And this 2-inch piece that we have at the bottom is essentially gonna get bent this way at 90 degrees, so that the whole bracket will end up being kind of like that. Or rather, the flat side here and then the 90-degree piece this way, so that we can bolt it onto the hole here. So next on the list is, let's cut it off with the grinder. This line here we're gonna cut about halfway through the piece of metal so that we can bend it. And then I'm gonna use the welder to fill in the cut side so that the metal is still strong. Never done that before, but seems like it's one way to bend metal at a very narrow angles. So, all right, there's our bracket. I just need to grind this edge a little bit to clean it up. I cut that so you can see how I bent it. I'm gonna use the welder to fill in that edge. Hopefully that works. If not, we'll see what we're gonna do. And the idea is that it will fit like this right here. So I'm gonna mark where that hole is and drill it, and this should get us a good enough bracket so that this thing doesn't turn over. We're gonna drill another hole on the bottom side too, so that we can mount it to the shelf. And essentially this would end up being kind of like here, right? That's not a very straight angle. But whatever, it is what it is. All right, here's my terrible welding job. But it did fill in the metal on the backside, so now I'm just gonna use the grinder and even that out so that we actually have flat surfaces on this side and on this side. I can clean that up a little bit, and I think the other side needed a little bit of cleanup as well. So let's grind that down. All right, here's the bracket after we've ground it down. Like I mentioned, my weld job is not the greatest, hence this is not a nice flat piece of metal, but rather a bunch of clumps. But honestly, this is not an integral part of the of some sort of mechanic. It's just the bracket, so I'm more than happy with this. I also grinded this end here where we cut so that it's a bit cleaner, and as you can see, it sits nicely and it will fit right here. So now let's mark up some spots to drill some holes in it, and we should be good. And the bracket is ready. We have a hole on the top, hole on the bottom. All right, my desk is finally clean. Tool bench no longer has stuff on it, and ta-da! The engine is on the shelf. I added the bracket that I made. I had to flip it the other way just because the engine is wider than the plank itself. Still ended up mounting it with a pretty long small screw with a bunch of washers and a spacer in the middle, so that like this massive gap that you see in the hole here, it's the same one here, is actually filled up a little bit. And then just another drywall screw on the bottom hole just to keep it down. The point of the bracket is not to lift the engine up, it's just to hold it from tipping over that way, which it does perfectly. And yeah, the shelf is holding. I don't see it pulling away from the wall, which is great. I'll keep monitoring it. If I noticed that it's starting to pull away. I'll probably grab another bracket like that and mount it this way here. So anchoring it here to hold from the top side. I don't think I'll have the space on this side, but either way, that's it. So we have the 1983 V45 motor on the wall. All right, now let's move the bikes back in their spots and wrap it up. All right guys, that was it for this episode. The motor's on the wall. The weather is getting nicer, so hopefully soon we can get out and do some riding. And make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications when new videos become available. Check me out on Instagram at Balkan Moto 2018 and check out balkanmoto.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.